Hello and welcome. I'm delighted you're here. Today, I want to share a little bit more about the fourth dimension of consciousness, which, of course, is between the third dimension, separation consciousness, and the fifth dimension, unity consciousness, which are very different in terms of their levels and perspectives. So, the fourth dimension is the transitional dimension. It is literally a dimension of transformation. It's where many of us who have been on the path for a long time have lived for a number of years. There's a particular challenge about the fourth dimension that I want to highlight here, as well as offer suggestions for navigating around that challenge. And I want to do this by offering a metaphor that came to me a little while ago. So imagine that we are living in a dark, dank, old, dying forest where there's a lot of undergrowth, a lot of weeds, a lot of fallen branches. It's not a great place to live, but it's what we know. And there's a persistent rumor that just beyond the forest is this beautiful sunlit pasture. And beyond that are mountains and valleys and just a gorgeous environment for living joyfully and abundantly. And all we have to do is get out of the forest. And so, with great determination, we begin pulling some weeds and clearing those fallen branches and digging and cutting and chopping. And it becomes a habit. We become habituated to the activity of doing that. And so, wherever we look, we see more weeds to pull, we see more branches to clear, not realizing that in pretty short order, we had already cleared an opening big enough just to go through. We could see the light, we could start moving through that opening. But we've become so oriented toward the digging and the pulling and the weeding, we miss that. And we also don't fully understand that the longer we stay in the forest, the more weeds will grow and the more branches will fall and the more work there will be to do. You no doubt recognize that in this metaphor, the weeds, the fallen branches, the undergrowth, all of those things represent the limiting, very painful beliefs that grow in the third dimension. When we believe ourselves to be separate from source and from all that is, thoughts such as, I am not enough, I am unworthy, there's not enough to go around, I have to work hard to prove my worthiness to receive anything that's available, those kinds of thoughts that give rise to competition and war and greed and poverty, all those painful beliefs that we hold about ourselves and the world are represented by, in this metaphor, all the weeds and the undergrowth and all of that. And the rumor about this beautiful other alternative just beyond the forest that represents our awakening in the fourth dimension to much greater possibilities for our lives. We begin to understand that we are not just physical beings in a fixed physical universe that is decaying. We are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe which is constantly renewing itself. And we further begin to understand our very perspective about that, our consciousness, the way we think and believe and interpret things. Those are vibrations. Those thoughts and perspectives and beliefs are vibrations, and they, in fact, are forming, they're the basis of our lived experience. And that's a very empowering perspective. And yet, what can happen in the fourth dimension as we become really hyper aware of all these beliefs that we've been conditioned to accept as true that are not true, we sort of become myopically focused on getting rid of them. It's like we're going on a search and destroy mission to rid ourselves of every false, limiting, and painful belief. In doing so, we are remaining focused on the false, limiting, painful beliefs. And this is where the metaphor sort of breaks down, because unlike tree branches, which literally can be cleared, beliefs, thoughts, thought patterns are energy. They're energetic in nature. We can't, quote, get rid of them. We can't clear them out of our energy fields. What we can do is render them inactive by activating new perspectives, new beliefs, new thought patterns that are in harmony with this beautiful fifth dimension, in harmony with love and joy and abundance and mutual respect and peace and creative fulfillment. We can begin to cultivate that perspective, which, back to the metaphor, is akin to moving directly toward the light, just moving directly toward the light. And anything that may still be, quote, in our way will show up. It'll be on the path right in front of us. So if there is still a lingering belief or two, they'll be very obvious. They'll be very obvious to us. We don't have to keep searching for them. They'll just show up and we'll have a choice about how to respond in that moment. Here's how we've been responding so often. We're living our lives, becoming more excited about what we can create, and something shows up that is unwanted and does reflect an old thought pattern, a painful belief kind of a thought pattern. And our first go-to is we want to figure out what that is. We want to figure out how on earth did I create that? So we go right into analysis and fault finding. It is the fault finding. It is the judgment of that belief as wrong and bad and needing to be eliminated. That orientation comes from the third dimension. In the fifth dimension, there is only love. So in the fifth dimension, we're not looking for what is wrong. We're choosing to see only what is loving, rather than going into judgment and analysis of how we created this unwanted thing. The opportunity we have is to simply pause, acknowledge it, come into our hearts, and find a way to shift our focus back toward the light. And I'll be talking about a lot of those different ways moving forward. But for right now, the simplest and most direct thing we can do is just simply ask ourselves, so what is this showing me that I really want? What is this showing me I really want? And answering it. Perhaps I want more abundance. Perhaps I want more peace in the world. Perhaps I want greater ease in the work that I do. Whatever is showing up that's unwanted is showing us more clearly what we do want. So we have the opportunity in those moments to just take some deep breaths, acknowledge how we feel, and then intentionally shift our focus back toward the light, back to where we're headed. And again, there are many things that we can do to support ourselves in that, and that's a lot of what we'll be talking about on this channel. I just want to really highlight that it is those moments of reaction to something showing up that's unwanted, where we can get pulled back into a third dimensional orientation of fault finding. So it is in those moments when we make the choice to pause, to step back, and to redirect. That is how transformation occurs. That is how we keep moving toward the fifth dimension rather than letting ourselves get pulled back to the third. The really good news is now, right here, right now in 2024, this whole process of pausing, stepping back, redirecting, it's easier than it's ever been because there have been so many of us on this path. There are so many of us, and more people are waking up every day that the energies now of love, of joy, of fulfillment, of abundance, of respect and support and empowerment, they're much more available and accessible now than ever before. So it's as if, calling back that metaphor, it's as if the sunlight in a pasture is brighter, it's easier to see. And those who have made it through the clearing ahead of us, they're in that pasture cheering us on, and they're pointing out where to step and where not to step, and they're extending their hands to help. We have all kinds of support in both the physical and non-physical realms to help us stay focused in and with the light. So let's take advantage of that. Let's support each other. This is not about, quote, putting our heads in the sand and pasting over what's, quote, wrong. It's choosing not to see anything as wrong. It's choosing to stand in our creative power, the power of our heart, the power of our focus, the power of our choice, and just to create, to cultivate the vibrations, the consciousness that allow us to experience that which is gloriously wanted. So again, in future videos, I'll be sharing a lot of suggestions about how to do this, how to respond in those moments, particularly how to respond to our own self-judgmental thoughts. But for now, I just want to create a very clear point of emphasis. It is our choices in those moments that make all the difference, that make the difference between navigating through this transitional dimension with ease and grace versus cycling back to pain and up again, and back to pain and back out again. So we can make this easier for ourselves when we understand the concept. The way we deactivate false and painful beliefs is by activating loving and empowering ones, which really requires that we create a whole new perspective, right? A perspective of who we are. That's what the dimensions of consciousness are all about. In the third dimension, our perspective and therefore our perception is that we are not enough, that there's something wrong with us. In the fifth dimension, our perspective, our understanding, our knowing, and therefore our perception is that we are one with Source itself, that we are innately and always and gloriously worthy of all the good life has to offer. Simply get in the habit of asking ourselves if and when things show up that are not what we would have wanted, to suspend any tendency to make any of that wrong, and instead come into our hearts and ask, what does this show me that I want? Perhaps even, what is it showing me that I'm ready for now? Just play with that. I thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.